Welcome back to LimQ Plus, everyone. On this channel, I'm 100%ing Breath of the Wild by a bit every day until the sequel comes out, Tears of the Kingdom, today. That's in 134 days. I will talk about different topics as I go. Today, I actually want to talk about something I've been working on since yesterday and I'm planning to work on for a long time. This is something I've talked about in a previous video. And that is that I'm not 100% happy with the 100% speedrun rule set. There is a couple things in the current 100% speedrun rule set that I dislike, that I, if I could, would change, and that is exactly what I did. I changed the rule set of the 100% speedrun. Now, I didn't just change it on speedrun.com. I don't have that much power. It's not like, oh, LimCube said this thing, let's all change it. I just made my own rule set for the speedrun that I am going to do. I will speedrun with this rule set in mind, but that doesn't necessarily mean that anyone else is going to do so, and I don't want the official rules to change. These are my rules that I prefer. I will today explain to you what I changed, what's different, and why I made these decisions. Here we go. So first, it's about timing rules. As you may or may not know, Breath of the Wild speedruns start when you gain control of Link. This was mainly done, to my understanding, in the past because people would use Wii U and Switch to speedrun the game, and the Switch would actually have a little bit of a disadvantage back in the day. Later on, they patched in a new mode called the boost mode or the power mode that the Switch was able to take advantage of. That basically allowed the Switch to load quicker. So nowadays the Switch is a lot faster than the Wii U, especially when we are talking about longer speedrun categories like 100%. The Switch saves a ton of time. So everybody would usually run on Switch unless they want to lose a lot of time. Now, there was a rule back in the day when the Wii U was still faster. That made it so that when you start a new file and you start a new speedrun, timing doesn't begin when you press new game, it begins when you gain control of Link. And I'm not a huge fan of that. The reason I'm not a huge fan of it is because it just feels kind of wrong, right? You start playing the game when you press the new game button. And that's the first rule I changed. My run would start timing when you press new game, which would actually lose time, but it just feels better to me than starting your game when you gain control of Link. And especially now that this rule isn't really that relevant anymore because people run on Switch anyway. This was just in place to basically balance out Wii U and Switch because sometimes one of the two consoles would lose time in the original beginning cutscene. But now that that problem is basically irrelevant anyway, by the Switch being the superior choice for speedrunning regardless, that's a rule I would change. Now, another rule I would change is the ending of the speedrun. Currently, the 100% speedrun has multiple different endings. And by the way, this is something I haven't even talked about yet, but for me to be a true 100% speedrun, and that's the rules that I'm going to be running, it needs to include the DLC. Now, currently on speedrun.com, you can do 100% runs with or without DLC, whatever you prefer. There's two different rule sets. For my true 100% rule set, I basically say, well, DLC has to be included. It's a major part of the run, and if you want to have a true completion type playthrough, I think the DLC should be part of it. So in the DLC rule set on speedrun.com, by the way, I'm just going through the 100% speedrun route right now, checking if I have obtained all of the Korok seeds, so that I'm not missing any. Right, so that out of the way, I basically say DLC has to be included in the rules set on speedrun.com. If you do a DLC run, there's technically multiple options where you can end your speedrun depending on how your route works. You could end your speedrun when you get the last hit on the final boss, aka Monk Mascotia. You could end your speedrun when you get the last location that you need. Basically, depending on how you routed the category, your speedrun would end at different points. Unfortunately, that already made it so that you always want to end on the final hit on Monk Mascotia, because after that, there's like a big cutscene. So if you did that at any point but the end, you would basically be at a disadvantage. So that being said, I completely changed that rule and I said the only way you could end your speedrun is by defeating Dark Beast Ganon, and when you defeat Dark Beast Ganon, there's this little banner that rolls up that basically shows Destroy Ganon complete. Destroy Ganon is a main quest in the game that you can basically never really complete. Like every time you open your adventure log, it's there. This one, right? Destroy Ganon. And even if you kill Ganon and you reload, this quest is still not shown as completed. The only time this quest is basically completed is after you've defeated Ganon. So for my ending, for the true 100% speedrun, I would have all quests completed first. I'm talking about the actual definition of the goals you have to do in the run in a bit. But once you have every single goal completed, you have to defeat Ganon, and when then this quest gets shown as completed, then you can end your timer. Your ultimate speedrun has been completed. That's a rule change that I made. Now, a sleep break rule. So currently in 100%, I'm going to talk about this briefly, it's a bit nerdy. Currently in 100%, you have an 18-hour break pool, and you get to take 3 breaks. What most runners do is they split up their 100% speedrun, like at least top runners, in 2 sessions, and then after the first session they go to bed, get their normal sleep in, keep the health intact. But even with that being said, I think it's still not very healthy, especially for new runners. The 18 hours are not enough. New runners can easily take 30 to 40 hours to complete a 100% speedrun, making it essentially impossible for them to keep their normal sleep schedule and life schedule intact. So I changed those rules in my ultimate rule set and said, runners are allowed to pause the timer and have a break from their run at any time. But if you do pause your timer, you have to return to the home screen. Now I could pause my timer. And while my timer is paused, I'm not allowed to change any settings in the console because I would be able to abuse the pausing of the timer somehow. Then when I can, if my break is over, I went to the bathroom, maybe I got my Amazon package, I'm continuing the timer, and then I would be able to play again. Additionally, the run needs to be completed in a 72 real-life hour time frame. This, in my opinion, is a much nicer way to do it, mainly because it basically allows you to keep your normal life intact, right? 72-hour time frame means, for example, for a top runner, that takes like 20 hours for the speedrun. What they can do is they can split up their run in like 6 to 7 hour sessions, and in between they can, cook food, live their life, maybe, take some care of their pets, and don't ruin their life just because they want to go fast in a video game that has such a demanding and long speedrun. And even for new runners, they could still split up their run into 3 10-hour sessions. That's like a little bit more demanding, but it's still doable, especially because they are allowed to pause the time at any point. So they could play for like 5 hours, take a little bit of a break, get some food, another 5 hours, and then they do that for like 3 days in a row. It's still demanding, but I think it's a better way to handle the sleep break rule set, balancing out a rule set that doesn't make the run feel like essentially a segmented run, but at the same time allows players and runners to not sacrifice their health too badly for attempting a speedrun like Breath of the Wild 100%. Now, let's actually talk about the 100% definition. What, according to my rule set, would you have to do in order for your run to count as 100% completion? So you would have to do... I didn't change many rules here compared to the normal 100% rule set. So I'm not going to go over every single one of them, but I'm going to summarize them. So basically, you would have to fully upgrade your stamina and hearts. So 28 hearts with the DLC is the most you can get by default, and 3 stamina wheels. Technically, you would also be able to do 30 hearts and like miss out on 2 stamina wheels, but stamina is more powerful in speedrun. So basically, max out the amount of container upgrades you can do, heart containers and stamina containers, right? And also to get all heart containers from the Divine Beasts is a rule for completion. And to get all 124 Spirit Orbs from the respective shrines. This includes the 4 DLC shrines on the Great Plateau. The other DLC shrines don't give Spirit Orbs, they give these emblems, which are technically something else. The reason this is specifically written down is because technically nowadays you can get all hearts and stamina upgrades without actually getting all of the spirit orbs by duplicating them. But in order for the run to count as truly complete, you would have to get them from the respective shrines. Now, the next big goal is to complete the adventure log. The adventure log is this thing on the left here. What this means is to complete all 20 main quests. You see on my file I have 10 of 20. Complete all 42 shrine quests, all 90 side quests, and obtain all 23 memories. This is relatively standard, but I did add one specific rule to my ultimate speedrun that is just for my own amusement because I think it makes the run cooler. And that is the rule that for the side quest called EX Trot of the Sword, you have to complete every single floor. Basically banning the Trot of the Sword skip. Because while it is fast, it is incredibly boring. Essentially what you do is you clip out of bounds. And don't get me wrong, I said before that I obviously like using glitches when they are fun, when they add to gameplay. And not only does it feel like you're not really completing the Trot of the Sword if you just always go to the final room and beat the final room 3 times, but it also is just much less fun. If you've seen the Trot of the Sword skip before... Oh, I didn't put on the right boots. If you've seen the Trot of the Sword skip before, you basically go out of bounds and then you fight the same boss, the same Hinox boss 3 times in a row with a metal box, and that's it. And yes, it's fast, and yes, usually I do glitches when they allow me to go fast, but that one in particular, I basically decided to restrict in my rule set because I think it would be cooler to actually complete the Trot of the Sword. That's what I was going for with that rule. Now, that's pretty much it for the adventure log. The other thing that I slightly changed is true map completion. So true map completion means to get a 100% map counter, which you can see on the map here, right? Currently I have 36.26%, which actually went down compared to yesterday because I installed the DLC again. So I'm gonna have to work a little bit harder on this daily upload stuff. Also, to get all individual 900 Korok seeds from their source. This means to not duplicate Korok seeds, but to actually get them from their original location. To get all discoverable locations, which are locations like this ruin down here that I actually haven't discovered yet. When you go to these locations, you will officially discover them, and the map counter will go up. To get all shrines and all towers. But the rule that I changed is that not only do you have to get all shrines, you also have to get all shrine chests. And this is something I talked about in the previous video. I'm trying to figure out if I have a shrine completed here somewhere where I also got the chest. This one. It actually changes the map by adding this little chest icon next to the shrine name. So I thought for the run to truly be 100% completed, at least in a reasonable way, you also have to get the shrine chests. That just feels better. That feels more complete because it literally changes the way your map looks when you hover over the shrines, making it seem more complete. So that's another rule change I made. The last rule change I made is regarding the last big point, which is all key items. So key items are the items right here. If you want to have them all, you would have the Sheikah stick with all upgrades, sensor plus, bombs plus, stasis plus, the paraglider, all upgraded champion abilities if you have the DLC, all Kilton medals by defeating all mini-bosses, all horse bridles and saddles that you can either buy, get from minigames, or find. Hestus gift from all of the Korok seeds, the confidential envelope from completing the full compendium, all permanent weapons, which in this case is just the Master Sword is the only permanent weapon. And then what we used to do is that in 100% currently, you have to upgrade all permanent armor to level 4. Permanent armor is the Champion's Tunic, the Zora armor, and the Tunic of the Wild that you get from the completing all of the shrines. That always felt kind of half-assed to me. It felt like random to only upgrade those specific armor pieces, especially because nowadays with glitches you can like literally sell them anyway, or you can like technically eat them with hold prompt entanglement, which is a really strange glitch. So what I decided to do, which makes the run not only more interesting but also more fun gameplay wise in my opinion, is instead of saying to upgrade these random armor pieces, you have to get all armor pieces. You have to get every single piece of armor in the game once. That includes the circlets here in Gerudo Town. That includes DLC armor. You have to get the DLC armor anyway for the DLC side quests, etc. But as a compromise, you do not have to upgrade them. Now, I agree that technically upgrading every single armor piece would feel more complete, but it would also add around 5 hours of menuing and cutscenes at the Great Fairy Fountain and a bunch of convoluted, complicated IST setup steps, which might be considerable as a cop-out. I'm basically saying, okay, I know I could complete the game even more by upgrading everything, but I'm not going to. I really think there is a point, though, where you can never win, right? Even if I said, okay, I'm upgrading every single armor, somebody would be like, yeah, what about the amiibo armor? You should cook every single meal. You should maybe have all weapons in your inventory at one point. Defeat every enemy. Like, you can never really 100% the game. So to find a nice compromise between collectathon and completion and also playability, my argument is, in my true 100% rule set, I will simply get all of the armor sets, and that's it. And that's pretty much it. That's my rule set for my true 100% speedrun. In my opinion, an improvement over the current rule set, and I will be labbing out that speedrun on my Twitch channel until I'm able to do speedruns with it. And even if I am the only person out there that does speedruns with that rule set, that's fine for me, because I think they're going to be really fun. But yeah, looks like I have all of the Korok seeds here already. Looks like at least... Wait, let me see. Yeah. These are all completed. At this point, normally I would go to Master Koga, defeat him, and then what's the next step from here? I think you do the Divine Beast, and then I think you teleport here. So that's where I'll continue tomorrow. But yeah, that being said, let me know what you think of this rule set. Do you think it sounds like an improvement? Do you think it sounds interesting? Do you have any comments? Tears of the Kingdom comes out in 134 days. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow for another daily video. Peace.